If you could just start that story again. You were saying you've been on the path for 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of led a hedonistic, materialistic existence. Still, still obviously, you have to play. You've got to kind of, play a part in this world, and so you can't completely escape duality.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of, so kind of obviously now I've got my I'm orientated towards self-realization rather than a fictitious form of happiness that the material world can't give you. So I think, a good powerful analogy for me would be snakes and ladders. So I was playing snakes and ladders before on the material board, but obviously there's no end in sight when it comes to happiness. So I'm on the spiritual board now. And coincidentally, as a bit of a spiritual coincidence, is that when I actually looked up the game Snakes and Ladders, the actual origin actually comes from India, and it was actually to do with self-realization. I actually
really?
found, so the insight was 3 days ago, and I thought, my God, yeah. So the snakes on the spiritual board actually represented vice, and the ladders represented virtue.
Wow.
So obviously, but but I guess, Lisa, one of my main questions is obviously there's a lot of people on the spiritual board, and they follow their respective gurus, or they jump from guru to guru or whatever. It just seems like obviously there are millions of seekers, and obviously we know people who've self-realized, and I don't know whether you're self-realized. I mean, I don't know how you can really know completely, but then I guess you have to use your intuitions to a degree. But it just seems like we know the Ramana Maharshis, we know, or the names, the Papajis, but it just seems like obviously the odds are clearly stacked against the seeker. It seems like it's a one in a million, and I just feel like, what is that? And I study this thing called Advaita Vedanta, which obviously they say it's to do with your vasanas and the karmic imprint from previous lives. So that's going to kind of be an obstacle for you actually, getting 99 on the board of Snakes and Ladders, and then, leaping into, getting into 100, be permanently abiding in the self. But, is it a case of, is there more suffering on the spiritual board? But, like for people on the material board, probably they're looking at the people on the spiritual board and thinking, what, there's not many people who actually find self-realization. Probably ignorance is bliss. And it's one of those where I think, it's just, I think sort of Star Wars, at least they had a system with Jedis where they are actually producing Jedis at a frequently. You could realize you're in a Jedi, and, you had a Jedi council. Seems like, like the Mujis and every one of them, when they disappear, who's going to take over type of thing. It's kind of, I mean, I understand that there are people who find self-realization and they don't want to participate in the material, they don't want to teach, they don't want to do nothing. They're just happy to abide in the self and remain connected to the totality. But then it just seems, I don't know, as I said, I mean, I feel like I'm making some kind of spiritual progress, and perhaps you can tell me. I mean, the thing is, and I don't want to say it because I want to remain anchored to humility, because I don't want my ego to take place. So when I say, oh, am I making spirit? I just want to kind of ask you whether, like, say, for example, I'm meditating. I've got this deep yearning, but, say, for example, in the last 6-7 months or so, nature seems to have kind of completely taken a different tint, it has a completely different, I perceive it in a completely different way. Everything's gone very high def. I'd say everything seems in high resolution, high definition. I would say stillness does creep in from time to time. It's not there permanently, but I can feel it at times. And I'm doing things that are considered, that are more sattvic. Say, for example, in you'd probably know that like waking up at 4 in the morning, and I seem to have more clarity of mind, and ideas seem to be coming through, but more, pure, wholesome ideas seem to be flooding through. But I don't know if these are all good signs of, to show that when you are, you're heading in the right direction. But it's a bit of a battle. As I said, are the odds stacked up against the seeker? Secondly, I mean, this is no slight on you, but I just feel like, with non-duality and things like that at the moment, I feel like there's going to be, could that, is there a danger of it turning into an industry? Just in the same way, yoga has been compromised, and yoga, most people now, when words evoke images, when most people think of yoga, they think of exotic postures and when you study yoga, and I was one of these people, I was a casualty. I fell victim to that, thinking that yoga was just about exotic postures, probably laced with a bit of spirituality. But in fact, it's only when you learn Vedanta, when you learn, you go into it, it's actually only 5% of what it's about. You've got the knowledge, you've got the devotional part, and you've got the action part, the service part, and it just feels like, I don't know, will spiritual realization become an industry in the future where it will make it even more confusing for the sincere seeker like me? Well, do you understand? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's always difficult to know if we truly understand each other. That's an interesting concept. But I think I get your drift.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question was, so I've forgotten what the first question was because I'm thinking about the second one. So can we just answer the second one first?
So back to my spiritual, so my snakes of ladders analogy, that obviously there's millions of seekers out there, but there's very few that find self-realization.
Yeah. Okay.
Are the odds stacked up against the seeker?
Yeah. I really don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's very abstract, the notion. Like, it's abstract, the notion that that there is all these seekers out there to me, and it's abstract, the idea that they're trying to get to freedom and that they may or may not get to freedom. I know that seems abstract, that I would think that, but it is kind of abstract, all those ideas. Like, so it's abstract that you're not free now.
Mm-hmm.
It might not feel like that because your story reports back to you that you're not free, and then you might think that I am free. Whereas really, I don't even know if I'm free or not free, because that's also abstract. Like, I just am, and you just are. But the story that you've been told your whole life is that there's somebody moving through time, and there's somebody that will become free or won't become free, and there's people that are free and aren't free. And then there is a belief in that story. And that's okay, all of that. Those are words that are appearing. But the consciousness that's happening now is not affected by that. The consciousness is free. The consciousness is embracing both sides. The person thinks, I'm going to find freedom in me, so it's me that's going to become free. But what actually happens is there is like a shift back to that which is watching, which is always here. And when we look in the story world, it's always an abstraction. So it's abstract that you're going to get enlightened or not get enlightened in the future, and it's abstract that you're not free now. But that I can imagine that's also uncomfortable to hear.
Absolutely, and probably, and I understand what you're saying, and obviously, I think there's also a linguistic divide between the spiritual community and the common man on the street, because people wouldn't understand what you just said for most people. But I understand that basically, yes, we are already free. We just don't know it. But it's the actual embodiment of that. When you embody that, when people say that you abide in the self, it's like, no, you're still attached to your ego. That's what, most people, they just can't dissolve that ego. It's actually been established in that consciousness, and it's like I understand all the Mujis and yourself, and everyone's pointing to it, but it's like that penny's not dropping for most people.
And what's the interest in that story for you?
Sorry?
What's the interest? Like, why are you interested in that story? So everyone will have their stories that they're interested in, and it normally is a pattern. Like, it's normally a pattern of stories that we're interested in. Like, Lisa's pattern used to be goodness. It still can come up, goodness as well. But so what's your interest in that?
because I am a seeker. I've got a deep yearning, but as I said, it's knowing that I'm on this spiritual board now. I'm not going back to the material board. But I obviously want to know that, like, literally, you know, like, are the odds stacked, as you said, like as I said, that, you know, like the Mujis, the Sadhgurus, they've got millions of followers. There's millions of people in this, you know, on this seeking spiritual board, but very few get to, you know, that state of self-realization. And I just understand, why don't these pointings, what are the barriers in the way?
Well,
you know, why aren't there as many success stories? Why aren't there as many Jedis coming through?
And what would happen to you if you gave up that question? Like, what would that feel like, to give up that question?
Yeah, one less thought.
Is there anything deeper than that? Like, is there like anything else that doesn't want to let that go? I'm not saying that wasn't deep, your answer, it was deep, but I mean, like, is there anything underneath that? Like, is there any energetic attachment to that story? Like, is there a victim story that's there or something? Like, I just ask this because, to me, like, the barrier is the question.
Well,
not the
I
answer.
think mine is just, I want to get, because obviously with this, in the spiritual world, there's a lot of different answers that people, and I'm asking you because I will ask other people. I will ask
I think
Rupert
that's really
Spira the
wise.
same.
Yeah, I think it's really wise to get different answers to the question, not have like one that's the right way. Yeah,
precisely. And through getting those answers, the penny may drop. So you know, as you said, we know that. I mean, I don't know about your spiritual, how you got to the top of the board. But, you know, some people can get there from, you know, position 3 all the way. You know, it's very rare that happens, but then most people are on the progressive path, and you know, they're just plodding along, and you know, climbing ladders and slipping down snakes.
but have you ever wondered if the ladders are as much illusory as the snakes? Like, you see the ladders as the good thing, like virtue is the good thing, and what was the snakes called?
Vice. Yeah, that's what the game in the 1300s suggested. I mean, life does feel like that, but I agree. I understand what you're saying, that basically they're all kind of illusory in this, but you know, to break, you have to use the ego in order to dissolve the ego, don't you? That's the thing.
Yeah, but so let me tell the story of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. Like, I'll just wrap it up really quickly. See, he sat under the Bodhi tree, and Maya presented heaven and hell, and the Buddha did not move. And the way that the Maya presented heaven and hell was through virgins, was through joy, was through excitement, was through death, through a war, through disease, through family, through spiritual enlightenment. And the Buddha did not move. And it doesn't mean that the Buddha as a person did not move. So, like, people think that the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for 40 days and 40 nights and did not move as a person. But what it means is there's something else that did not move. So to me, what happens when you're asking that question is there's something in you that attaches to that question. So there's something in that story in which you're attached to, and you think that the answer is the resolution, but what actually is the resolution? And sometimes the resolution can be the answer, as in that will stop the attachment, actually. But it's what I'm trying to point to is it's not actually getting the answer. It's the dropping of this story. This story doesn't have truth in it. It doesn't go anywhere. Like, your consciousness is free right now, but there's something that wants to go into that. And that's the barrier, that wants to go into the story. So even in the I know, like you came up with I know, who knows? What knows?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to process that in my mind at the moment.
And then,
The story is obviously the yearning. What is that story erecting an obstacle
and then there's
for me?
and then there's somebody that wants to get over that story, and in all of that movement, there's something that's watching that never moves.
No, I get that, and I can connect with that awareness at times. It just feels like this is my path.
Yeah,
This is happening. It's just, whatever is happening, even if I'm kind of, attached to this story, this is my route. But
yeah,
objectively, I'm just saying that as if you were to basically, if you were on that material board and you were looking over and you're thinking, right, okay, the spirit, they're saying that basically, yes, you are already happy. You are already enough. Okay, how many people on the spiritual board actually are established in that understanding? Seems like most people, and whether you say it's a story, if I'm attached to it, I think it's just something we can objectively see, that we know the spiritual realized, we can count them on one, two hand, like we can count them on one hand, or maybe but put them on a list, but there it's the ratio of people who get to the top of the board compared to the number of people who try, there's a massive difference, and you're offering that. That's what I'm saying. You're offering liberation, aren't you? And I don't know how many people you've enlightened. You've got to the top of the board. I don't know, but it just seems like it's objectively speaking that it's the odds are stacked up against the seeker. Sorry, are you still there?
yeah. I'm still here. I just don't have anything else to say about that. I mean, there's many things that could be said, but yeah.
Is it worth playing the game? I'm on that board now. I can't look back. I just feel like
And you assume that the end of the game, so getting to the end of the game or the end of the board, is liberation. And that's what you assume, and that's what you're going after, and that's what you assume that I'm teaching or that I'm offering to people.
I don't know. As I said, I'm getting conflicting advice. I've got one guy who says if they're charging a fee per hour, run away. Would Ramana Maharshi have charged his students? I don't know. You see, that's the thing. How do you discern the authenticity of a true teacher? I don't understand. I don't know. It's something that you have to use. You're pretty much left your own devices and your own intuitions, aren't you?
Yeah, and then there's the mistake that there is a teacher rather than life is the teacher.
Exactly. So maybe that's probably just let life and your inner guru.
Yeah, and there's so many different objections, because you could see if somebody doesn't charge money, you could also look at it as in like they maybe don't respect themselves enough. So there's all different ways in which that could be looked at. It could be true that if they charge money, run away a mile, but it also could be if they don't charge money, maybe they don't have correct boundaries. So it's not as simple as what we think. And then also the idea that there is these teachers that are enlightened that can teach you, rather than life being the teacher. Because who is me and who is you? Who is this me that's teaching you? Who is this you that's listening to me? dynamics coming out. There's dynamics from you, there's dynamics from me, there's words coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And you assume that Lisa, the character, is teaching you. Whereas actually it's life playing both roles. So actually life is the teacher. When I feel that when that is really seen, then you can never find a wrong teacher and you can never find a wrong teaching.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think the teacher can manifest in so many ways, can't it? I mean, that's what I find. I'm fine. You know, there are the Advaita Vedanta school that I'm at. They'll say surrender yourself to one guru, but then I'm at odds with that as well, because you know I can just look at nature. I can look at you know, a tree. I can listen to music, a verse of a song.
What about if instead of like you say that you're at odds with it, what about if you were to rephrase it to that you're really open-minded and you can see it from lots of different angles? Like, and it doesn't mean that one has to be true. It's like it's that they've all got truth and wisdom in them, and life is so much more complex than we can put into words.
Yeah, no, I agree. But as you said, it's like if someone said that there's a heaven and a hell, you know, and just right, you know, there, you know, could you, you know, in your paradigm, could you accept that? If someone said, right now, there's just two, you know, the moment we die, it's just heaven or hell. There's an eternal heaven and there's an eternal hell.
Yeah.
You know, would you be at odds with that, or would you say, "All right, now I can accept that"? You know.
Yeah, that's interesting movement from what we said before. Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Like the way conversations go. Like in my mind, that's like it's like an interesting move that you present there. Because when I said that open-mindedness thing, I wasn't implying that you accept everything as being the truth. It's like seeing it from all different angles. Like I can also see from like myself, when I look at Christianity, I can appreciate how the idea of heaven and hell might have appeared, and that it might not be what typical Christians believe, that there's eternal heaven and eternal hell. It might be more reflecting to like karma and to the way that we think. Like it might be so like it's just, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like in the sense they're all words appearing. And seeing that none of the words, none of the stories, none of the teachers, none of the teachings are it. What is it is beyond all words and here watching and has no issue with anything. It's alive, it's present, it's conscious.
Yep. I agree. You know, yeah, because the thing is, as you said, there does seem to be a linguistic divide. As you said, the alive, you know, just as I said, most people, how do you even get people on that first rung of the ladder when most people are very unconscious? And, you know, if you were to speak to the common man on the street and saying, right, you know, it's alive, it's conscious, you know, they would just not know what you're talking. You know, they think, what are you blabbering on about? But I understand. I know what you're talking to. I felt it. I don't abide in it. It's certainly, you know, touched me, and I feel like I'm heading in the right direction. But it just obviously it's a different language game to.
Yeah, I would like if I give any advice and really I'm not a teacher that says that I'm right and this must be taken on board. Like it's there, I'll dangle it out, and if there's interest in it then you can look into that, and if not, just chuck it away. It really doesn't matter. But the advice that I would give to you is to look into this idea of you that's going to get there and you that's getting it right or wrong. Like this will have played out, I'm sure, in your previous life before you got into spirituality. Like there seems to be interest in this story, so there seems to be a vibration in your body that has belief in that story. So just investigate that story of that you are on the right or the wrong path. Who is on the right or the wrong path? And that would just be my advice, to investigate that, and that you don't need somebody's approval or disapproval. Like you don't need somebody to validate it or not validate it. But if you do that, if you go and find someone to validate it or not validate it, then that's perfect too. And that might relax something in you and something might shift. But is it related to a belief system that your body carries that has strong judgment about whether you're doing right or wrong, whether you're progressing or not progressing, whether others are progressing or not progressing?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely take that on board. I think, as I said, with just getting validation from others, it could be helpful, because I remember listening to something from Osho, and he said that, you know, when nature, what you'll find is when you do experience a reduction of thoughts, your consciousness starts to invite nature in, and you know, that was just a coincidence, because you know, for the last 6-7 months my relationship with nature has completely changed. I see trees and anything from the natural world, you know, it just speaks to me. And I don't know whether that is a sign of your, or is it, you know, and I want to remain anchored to the ego, no, sorry, to you know, humility, because, you know, I think people can kind of like think, oh yeah, you know, I'm on the way. I don't want to get there. You know, I don't. But is it a sign? And, you know, a reduction in agitation as well. You know, I will admit, hand on heart, that, you know, things used to irk me, but I think things are becoming less. You know, that they're creating less agitation.
Yeah.
You know, my father is case in point. You know, you know, your close ones know how to get under your skin, and, you know, for me, he's a good barometer in terms of how I'm spiritually progressing. You know, if I don't feel as agitated as I used to, you know, I'm moving in the right direction, and he doesn't, and there seems to be a background silence every time he says something. You know, there just seems to be a background silence. Yes, but it does. That's what I'm saying. I'm still kind of guilty. I'll fall into the trap. Ego will kind of latch on and think, oh, but it seems to be.
That's really nice.
Receding.
That all of that's receding. That's really nice.
But yeah, these questions that I've asked at you, it's just maybe, I don't know, as you said, where they originate. They're originating from somewhere, but at the same time, I feel like just follow your intuitions and get them out there.
Yeah.
You know,
nice. Yeah.
Okay.
I've forgotten what your second question was. So your first question was that, and then your second question. Oh, maybe it was the second question.
Yeah, that was the second question in terms of, like, you know, like,
nice.
You know, does nature speak to you? Does everything take on a little bit of vibrancy? You know, kind of. I don't know whether you experienced something similar. I don't know on the path. You know, but in terms of that, what you were saying, from that penny drop moment, how did it happen for you? So when you permanently kind of, you know, like that paradigm shift.
Yeah.
How does it happen? How does one experience that paradigm shift from the ego?
I don't know if your imagination of that paradigm shift is the same as what happened here. Like, and I don't know if it's the same as what happened with Ramana Maharshi or other speakers. Like, there just was, and I don't know if I'm free or not free. Like, I can't step into other people and see what their experience is. Like, I just know what's happening. And what happened 10 years ago was, there was, for years before that, this experience that kept happening where there was this like expansion and then a contraction and expansion. And then when I was in Bali, like something happened where the looker just expanded into everything. And then from then it didn't shift back to Lisa looking, but I still have character dynamics, and I still have maybe old seeking patterns or ways of being that are still like expanding and changing. So like Lisa still has issues that she works on, discomforts, but the looker isn't a thing anymore, like an object, which to me is freedom. And no matter how much I worked on myself before, I worked on myself a lot, like that doesn't compare to that shift. Like it's like working on yourself never ends to me, but that's not how other people speak, and I'm not saying that is the way it is, but to me it never ends. And you know, when you squash one dynamic, or when you stop one dynamic, or you change one dynamic, there is other dynamics that appear. So and that helped working on things. It helped settle my personality and make me more calm, but it certainly didn't clear everything. Like Lisa still has unconscious stuff and dynamics going on, and I can learn how to be better in social situations, or all different types of situations. So there's still understanding and learning going on, but none of that is like this energetic shift. This energetic shift to me was the only thing in which really was freeing. And that wasn't a personal thing. Like, so Lisa didn't become enlightened from it. Like the character didn't become enlightened. The character stuff in lots of cases became more light, but I still have my old dynamics and can slip into old dynamics if I'm not careful of it on the human level. So, but it was like an energetic shift, and it was something that really wasn't mind. It wasn't somebody that got something. It wasn't a mind thing. It was like a shift from being contracted to being a person inside the body, to consciousness, which is expanded, and it feels different from being limited. So it was like an energetic shift. But it didn't free the person. Like my person still has, you know, problems with you know, like I'm trying to think of a typical Lisa problem. You know, like I can still, if somebody presents certain dynamics that traumatize me in childhood, then I can sometimes freeze or go into pleasing, or, you know, like not respond in the appropriate way. So I still have to work on these types of things, like the human character level.
The work never ends.
Yeah, well,
I think you know, Lisa, you know, I went to see a guy called John Butler. Don't know whether you've seen him. He's
an older gentleman.
An old, yes. I kind of spent some time with him, and that's what he said as well. He made quite a big impression on me. I definitely think I found myself I felt more stillness when I was in his presence, and he, you know, he would prefer, you know, you not to speak. He'd say, like, if you've got nothing better to say than the stillness, then don't say it at all. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, I could literally go that, you know, and you know, could go for a walk with him anytime, you know. And but he said he goes, the work never ends. So when you said that just reminded me of what John said.
Yeah, it's not a personal thing. Like, to me, life expands. So life is always expanding. So when I was in India, this sadhu said to me, knowledge is infinite. And of course knowledge is infinite, but I'd just never thought of it in that terms before. And so the work on the person is infinite. The possibilities of expansion is infinite. The possibility of kindness is infinite. Like, everything is infinite. So to me, I feel like it's a balanced way to see waking up, but I know a lot of different teachers would disagree with that. So that's just my personal perspective, is that seeing that you, on the human level, can infinitely change and infinitely expand, stops this belief, or it doesn't stop it, but it negates, I suppose, or something, this belief that you on the human level will ever arrive. Because when people think they've arrived, they haven't. Because you can't arrive. Who would arrive? So it could be like another tripping point. Like, who would arrive?
It's been very useful.
Oh, nice. And you can listen back to it afterwards, so maybe it will be on YouTube, so it might be useful. Because sometimes when you're speaking live to someone, because there's like, I don't know, 100 or so people listening, then you can forget things that are said.
Yeah, no, and I'll probably learn from it as well, which would be great. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, lovely to speak with you. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, no, lovely to speak to you too.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Okay, my lovely fellow people, thank you so much for asking questions, interacting, for giving me the space to do these talks. I really appreciate it, speaking to you. It's such a joy to express non-duality. Like, it's like even for the Lisa character, expressing it, it's like, it's not me that expresses it, like, obviously, but it's like, I'm not complimenting Lisa, I'm just talking about those words. Like, I just find it so beautiful, this subject. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful evening or day or afternoon, and I shall see you next